Absolutely. Thank you so much, Ron, and thanks everyone for joining today. My name is Jeff Gusky, and like Ron mentioned, I support the AWS relationship here at Nasuni. And greetings from Washington, D.C. We're actually at the first convention post-pandemic at the AWS Public Sector Summit here in D.C. So you're live from our nation's capital. I'm going to shut off video here real quick, just from a bandwidth perspective. But again, want to chat with you today about ransomware. And for most of you, or if not all of you, I think you're all familiar with the the ransomware piece, and that it's a growing problem with not just within education, but in every sector that's out there. Have some brevity. I apologize for the technical difficulties here. So again, we look at one of the main points that I'd like to make, obviously, is within higher education and K through 12, obviously the federal government does obviously ask that you do not pay a ransom, and of course there are some private institutions that are out there that have, and that obviously means that institutions could get hacked again, and likely do. So from a impact standpoint, within schools, you have 1,681 universities that were hit in 2020, with tremendous amount of downtime and a lot of days that were spent on recovery efforts. As you know, student data that's out there, not to mention just from an operational standpoint with learning tools and having that all encrypted with with ransomware. Obviously, you can take down a university for days. Look at obviously the recent news with Howard University. So there's it's definitely an issue, and I think we're all pretty aware of what the impact is that it can have on a educational institution. So looking at some of the products that are out there, from a defense standpoint, a lot of familiar products, detection, as well. Clearly very important when it comes to a to a ransomware type strategy. Looking at the recovery phase, that's where you would put Nasuni. We have the ability to recover file data within minutes, as opposed to using traditional methods of using backup and trying to restore either from a disk copy or a cloud copy, or even a tape copy, and have to bring up full versions of restorations. So looking at Nasuni, we obviously, and I'll get into this here, are able to get very prescriptive and be able to recover very fast from from a ransomware attack. For example, here is a list of some of our large customers consuming petabytes and petabytes of Nasuni on S3, and these customers, all of them, from a file storage standpoint, have never had to pay a single ransom. Frequently, there are attacks definitely on ransomware, but not a single one has ever had to pay a ransom, and they all recover quickly when they are in fact attacked. I just want to point this out. There is a government website out there that's actually published for education. It's stopransomware.gov. A lot of great resources out there, just in case you haven't seen it yet. I'd definitely check it out. So you look at this slide here, it looks like a mess, and it's intended that way. From a Nasuni standpoint, what Nasuni does and what Nasuni is we are an enterprise file storage system that sits on top of cloud object storage. So if you look at traditional storage like your NetApp or Dell EMC Isilons of the world, or Windows file servers, you can have those across multiple campuses, for instance. And of that, you have your data silos that are associated with it. When you're trying to expand, it can be a huge nightmare. And not to mention, from a collaboration standpoint, if you're working with another university, or you're working on, sharing obviously research data, collaboration with, on a global level, that can be extremely difficult. We do that extremely well. In fact, that's our bread and butter, by putting that in, a cloud object storage, file system. It's it simplifies and makes that easier to manage. Not to mention, it reduces significant costs to your traditional on-prem infrastructure. So taking a look at the overall consolidation of your NAS and moving that to Nasuni on AWS, you're able to simplify your environment greatly. But as you're doing that, you're also removing a lot of areas that ransomware likes to impact. So being able to consolidate those areas, which include your file backup, for instance, is a big one. All of your remote sites, being able to consolidate that down and move that to Nasuni really does simplify that effort. So what does Nasuni actually look like? What we are is a primary file system, right? That sits on top of object storage. A lot of folks think that, oh, we're see this huge latency by putting your files in a cloud. And the reality is, what we do is we leave a small virtual machine that's on-prem on a campus that has that on-prem feel access, but all of the gold copy of the actual files resides in the in the cloud storage. So you have basically this the central copy that sits on top of a file system that is has continuous file versioning, which is immutable. So with that, that's really the bread and butter as it relates to fast backup, fast recovery when it comes to your data, which includes, of course, ransomware. One thing to note, with Nasuni, you do not need to use any third-party backup solutions, right? It's all integrated. All those other companies and organizations that I listed before, none of them use a third-party backup to back up Nasuni. We've been in business for 11 years, and not once have we had a corruption or had any of our customers impacted from a ransomware attack where they weren't able to recover within minutes. So obviously, if ransomware is top of mind and you're looking for a strategy to mitigate that, strongly encourage you to obviously reach out to Nasuni. We'd be able to have a discussion as it relates to putting together a plan for that. So looking at exactly why, right? If you look at your two critical factors of RPO and RTO, using traditional methods, right, it can take a long time to be able to go up and say spin up tapes. And then you have to take those files and actually restore at that point in time. That could be, the entire, it could be, say a loss of a week or 2 weeks of data. With Nasuni, you're able to surgically go back and restore a file to the point of the ransomware attack. So you're able to, go in and essentially restore an individual file, for instance, and be able to maintain as much of current, obviously updates and updated files that you're able to restore back to. So that is, the benefit, of course, of using Nasuni versus a traditional way of storing your data. So another, kind of way to frame this out is, looking at recovery. So obviously traditional recovery, you're looking at, the more files that you need to recover, the longer it takes. With the scalability of Nasuni, we do that within minutes. In fact, we have if you go on Nasuni.com, we actually have a demo of restoring over 1 million files within minutes. So you're able to go through and see, how you can recover from a ransomware attack. So, a couple quotes here from customers. Obviously, looking at obviously files encrypted, they're able to recover very quickly. We have actually plenty of public references that you could speak to in regards to ransomware. Some of these customers actually had a broader ransomware attack that the data that wasn't on Nasuni they had to use traditional methods, and it took them much longer. So luckily for their file data that was on Nasuni, they were able to recover much faster. And as I mentioned, we do have that demo that's sitting out on Nasuni.com. They were able to recover 1 million files in 39 seconds. So, imagine student data that's sitting out there, instead of, taking days, if not weeks, to be able to recover that, to be able to go back and restore and get out of that ransom infection quickly. So at that point, again, apologize for the difficulties from a technical perspective at the beginning, but look forward to speaking with each of you. If you have any questions, definitely encourage you to reach out to Nasuni.
Great, thank you, Jeff. We know technical issues. Sometimes we have it at live events, the projector breaks or something. It is the nature of technology. We used to be worried, well, what happens when the dog barks? It's just the nature of it, and we know how to deal with this. My internet's gone out, and I've had to then use my cell phone, my 5G LTE connection to run it all, and we know how to do this. The key takeaway here, and when you look at the context of what we're trying to do with regard to the content, you need expertise as offered by Huntress, as offered by Oracle, as your front line of defense. How do you stop this? But there is always a risk that someone's going to do something silly that creates this malware. Maybe it's a zero-day attack, maybe it's a persistent threat, and you need a right solution to recovery. Now, again, this is you don't want to. This is almost like the tail wagging the dog. Nasuni has a great array of just regular storage benefits that you want to be aware of that people use independent of ransomware. This is another important feature that you want to consider as part of how you structure your storage architecture. It is nice to know, oh, by the way, like you could justify Nasuni storage on its own. It's also nice to have, and this can help in your decision making, to then be able to deploy this to offer ransomware recovery. And if you go back to Bob's opening talk, again, that NIST framework, when there's prevention, there's detection, there's recovery, this is an important piece. So thank you very much, Jeff.